Hello, hola, bonjour, salve, what's good? Welcome to Shakespeare in Schools. Today's video, oh, that's a good one, is about code switching. So what is a code? There are a whole lot of definitions about what a code is, but for today, I'm going to combine linguistics and theater. If you haven't noticed, that's kind of what I do. Theatrically, your code has to do with the technical aspects of your voice. How high or low your voice is. That's called pitch, right? Some people talk all the way up here and some people talk all the way down here, right? Your speed, how fast or slow you talk. Your volume, how loud or how quiet you talk. And it has to do with articulation as well. If you speak very clearly with distinction all of the time, or you just kind of, mumble your way through things and it doesn't really matter. People don't understand what you say. Linguistically, a code has to do with literally your language, Spanish, English, etc., whether you mix them, when you choose to speak in which language you know, and what dialect or accent you might speak with. It also has to do with your vocabulary, the words that you are choosing, and your syntax, which means what order the words are in. So that was a whole lot of technical information. What I mean by all of this is that a code you are using depends on a lot of things. It depends on the language that you grew up with, the language that you acquired around other people, right? You can be born in a different country and move somewhere else, and then you speak something else at home that you do at school, maybe. And the ways authority figures or perceived authority figures have told you how to talk. Oh my god, you sound like really dumb right now. We do not use that language in the classroom. Has anybody ever told you that you, sound like a girl? This has a lot to do with culture. Who are your people, and can you switch to sound like them? Whatever that means to you. Yes, this conversation can get really uncomfortable really fast. I put links in the doobly-doo about how code switching relates to oppressive systems, and you should check those out. Code switching gets a bad rep because... Oh. Sorry, 1 second. Next Act Theater, this is Grace. Oh! Hi, Grandma! Hi! Oh, I didn't recognize your number, I'm sorry. Oh, you have a new phone? Oh, okay. How are you? Code switching gets a bad rep because people think it makes you inauthentic. Like, you only are your true self when you're speaking in one code, and if you switch to another one, you're being false. But actually, there may be science to back up the fact that the more codes you know fluently, the higher your emotional intelligence. Which makes sense. The more you can code switch, the more you are able to relate to a diverse audience of different types of speakers. And code switching has everything to do with your audience, or your perceived audience. I would sound way different to you right now if there were other people in my living room. To modify the way that you speak in order not only just to be understood, but to relate to the person that you're talking to is kind of a superpower.
They would give me an African name, Barack or Blessed, believing that in a tolerant America, your name is no barrier to success. All right, so let's go. No, I got it. There you go. You just keep that. Where's my tea? You got my tea? No, we straight. You got cheese fries? To Ahis, Autumn, Vain Erin, I am happy to be in Ireland. Greetings, Massive. Hey. Wagwan, Jamaica. Obama out.
Okay. What does this have to do with Shakespeare? Well, in our last video, we learned that Shakespeare and everyone around him spoke in a language called Early Modern English. And what's unique about Early Modern English is that the English language at that time hadn't really been standardized yet. The printing press was kind of new to England. Right, good point. China had been printing for like hundreds of years before Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, but the Chinese language has like 3,000 characters in it, as opposed to English or German, which has, less than 30. I mean, you try mass producing one of these on a movable type printing press and see how long it takes you. English had been written down before by scribes and monks and people with a lot of patience and a lot of ink, but it hadn't been printed. So books were kind of inaccessible to everyday people. And once the printing press was invented, somebody in the south of England could read the same thing that somebody in the north of England could read, but they had different accents. Imagine trying to standardize the spelling of a word like ocean, especially if your neighbor says ocean and you say ocean. How do you spell that? Webster's dictionary says that the word sentence wasn't used to describe a sentence until 1592. Shakespeare was 28 years old by then, writing plays in London, so Shakespeare didn't even know what a sentence was. In Elizabethan English and early modern English, there were no rules about spelling or grammar or punctuation, so Shakespeare had to write the way he wanted his characters to talk. So Shakespeare wrote in codes. Codes the way that I've been describing. The spelling and the grammar and the punctuation all give the actor clues about who that character is based on the way that they talk. Shakespeare used a lot of tools in his writing to tell an actor how he wanted that character to speak. But the big one that I want to focus on today is verse versus prose. Verse is cool enough that it's going to get its own video, but for now just understand that when a character is speaking in verse, they are speaking in poetry. It is a heightened or stylistic way to speak. There's a lot of structure and there's a lot of rules to the ways in which that character is choosing their words. When they are speaking in verse, they are speaking in a poetic form. Prose is the opposite. Prose is how I'm talking right now, how you talk to your friends. Prose has no structure. Prose is everyday speech. You're not really thinking ahead about what you want to say. Sentences just kind of fall out of your mouth. Whether or not a character spoke in verse or prose gave the actor and the audience huge clues into what that character is like. For example, if you had to guess which of these two characters spoke verse, a heightened and structured style, and which spoke prose, or everyday talking, who would you think speaks in poetry, and who speaks in regular everyday speech? You probably guessed it. This guy is Richard II, the King of England, for a while anyway, and this guy is Falstaff, a drunken soldier. Richard spends the entire play in near-perfect meter, which to me means that Richard always speaks with his cunning intellect. He's always planning what he's going to say before he says it, and he's always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Falstaff, on the other hand, never thinks ahead about what he's going to say, and speaks straight from his heart. Or, his gut. His cowardly, cowardly gut. Let's listen to them.
On this side my hand, on that side thine. Now is this golden crown like a deep well, those 2 buckets filling one another, the emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down, unseen and full of water. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs whilst you mount up on high.
I thought you had been willing to resign.
My crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories and my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those.
Part of your cares you give me with your crown.
Your cares set up, do not pluck my cares down. My care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won.
What is honour? A word. What is in that word, honour? What is that? Honour. air. A trim reckoning. Who hath it? He that died a Wednesday. Doth he feel it? No. Doth he hear it? No. Is it insensible then? Yea, to the dead. But doth it not live on with the living? No.
Did you notice how Richard II rhymed? His opponent would set up a line of meter, and Richard would finish it by rhyming on it, which is just a way of telling the audience that Richard is extra clever. Did you notice how the actor playing Falstaff got to play with his pauses and really talk to the audience? That's because his speech had no poetic structure to it, so he could kind of do whatever he wanted. There are characters in Shakespeare's plays that switch from verse to prose, or prose to verse. Henry V, for example, didn't always want to be king, so he spent a lot of time in bars carousing with people like Falstaff, speaking prose. After he's crowned, suddenly he starts speaking in verse to all the other nobles. Helena, in All's Well That Ends Well, also does this. When a creepy guy walks up to her and tries to start speaking in prose, she can speak in prose right back. Later, she goes to court and talks to the Duchess in verse. That's code switching. Shakespeare knew how to code switch. He listened to a diverse amount of people, and he wrote down what he heard. His plays have highly intellectual wordplay and also, dick jokes. A lot of them. If Shakespeare were around today and he wanted to put characters on stage who are a lot like you and your friends, he would listen to the way that you speak with your friends, and then he would put that on the page. If you're part of the discussion section, we'll be talking about code switching and what kind of codes you know in modern English, and how to code switch in Elizabethan, early modern English. I'm excited to hear your voices. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. They all die at the end.